Hello all, I am Garvit Chopra and this presentation is about institutional open access at home and outward internationalization based on the research study published by Journal of World Business. So this page is about the outline of the presentation. In the first part, we will discuss the research objective. Then we will try to understand the important concepts used in the proposition. Next, I will also talk about the theoretical framework which is used in this research study, and then we'll try to elaborate on a few other things to establish the hypothesis. In the method section, I will discuss data, sample size, and various variables to understand the correlation metrics and the regression models. As we approach to the last part of the presentation, we will accommodate our findings in the Canadian context. So before going to the next slide, it is essential to note that the framework in this study is based on the emerging economies. There are many studies conducted by the researchers that especially focused on the impact of host country institutions on foreign entrants. Conversely, on the other hand, there are few researchers that focused on outward internationalization of firms from emerging economies. Now, these three questions can be rephrased in a question like, how can we develop an institutional open access framework to highlight the effect of home country institutions on the internationalization of firms? So this study tried to probe the link between the interregional differences and the outward internationalization of local firms. In the next slide, we will define the important concepts that we will use very frequently in the entire presentation. So what is internationalization? Internationalization is the process of increasing involvement of enterprises in international markets. For example, if a firm wants to expand his operations in a foreign land, then this process is called as internationalization. Internationalization are of two types, inward and outward. But in this field of study and in this presentation, we will only talk about outward internationalization. So it is defined as any activities like any kind of exports, setting up of a sales licensing office in a foreign market, manufacturing facility in a foreign land. So these kind of activities of any firms are called as outward internationalization. Any internationalization moves involves two countries, host and home. For example, as we are in Canada, Canada is a home country and any other country like United States of America is a host country. So now we will define the institutional open access. It can be defined as any advancement in formal rules and policies that empowers individuals the right to engage in a variety of economic activities. So it can be political or social or both. Next, it is important to note that the economic development and growth are generally a part of this institutional open access framework. Now, what are the benefits of this study? While governments in many emerging economies such as Brazil, Russia, India, and China, which are also called as BRIC nations, have set country-level policies to facilitate institutional open access, but there are considerable regional differences that still exist within large emerging economies. For example, some institutions in one region may facilitate more outward internationalization than the institutions in the other provinces. So by comparing these intra-country regional differences, we may solve this confusion or we can say dilemma between an escape view and a fostering view. The escape view argues that outward foreign direct investment from emerging economies is a result of the difficult home country environment, whereas the fostering view suggests that advanced public institutions promote firms' outward internationalization. In other terms, public institutions promote their firms to become a multinational enterprises. So What are the benefits of market supporting institutional environments? First of all, it reduces the transaction costs. So, a transaction cost is a cost in making any economic trade when participating in a market. Secondly, modern firms' internationalization engages in more complex transactions in the global value chain and calls for more support from sophisticated contractual and legal systems. Finally, it facilitates impersonal exchange that is based on market efficiency rather than personal network or political power. This slide is the heart of the presentation, which demonstrates how institutional advancement at home shapes the progress of domestic firms' outward internationalization. In large emerging economies such as uh, BRIC nations, the rules and regulations at the provincial level are very diversified because of the cultural differences related to their customs, dialects, and sometimes languages. So, despite the nationwide implementation of market supporting policies and laws, intra country differences in economic freedom are still very strong. Hence, it leads to two important dimensions of openness that promote local firms becoming a multinational enterprises, or we can say outward internationalization. So the first one is the legal environment openness, and the second one is financial market openness. These two different dimensions of openness broadly define the protection from politician intervention, as well as it ensures competition-based market entry and support impersonal economic relationships. Also, the tenure of a province's governor, which definitely influences the implementation of regional policies, is likely to influence the efficacy of institutional openness on local firms' internationalization. Now, from this framework, we will define the hypothesis in the next slide. There are few hypotheses that have been made based on three variables discussed in the last slide, that is, legal environment and financial market openness, and the governor's tenure. I'm not going to read each and every sentence in these two slides, but to understand the hypothesis, I will make an example. Suppose I own a local firm which is headquartered in Vancouver. The question is how the legal environment and financial environment of the British Columbia province will affect my decision and degree towards my expansion in a foreign market, that is, towards outward internationalization. Here we have established two hypotheses based on the governor's tenure. We will empirically test how the governor's tenure in his office impacts the region's legal and financial environment openness towards the degree of outward internationalization. The authors have conducted a study of 5,239 Chinese companies, excluding financial and insurance firms. All of these companies are listed in Chinese stock market. The data like wage, population, GDP, and FDI are taken from China statistical yearbooks between 2001 and 2005. The variables are categorically divided into four segments like dependent, independent, moderating, and control. So these variables are used to perform the regression modeling to test the hypothesis. This is a descriptive statistics table and it has 16 variables. We are interested to know the relationship between any of the two variables. So we can use the correlation coefficient, which is a measure of the linear association between any of the two variables. So the further away the correlation coefficient is from zero, the stronger the relationship between the two variables. For example, if it is towards -1, uh, we can say that it is perfectly negative linear correlated. If it is 0, then there is no linear correlation. And if it is towards 1, then we can say that it is positively correlated with each other. This table reports the results of longitudinal models based on the first stage model estimation, which uses the internationalization decision as the dependent variable. In Model 4, highlighted in yellow marker, both legal environmental openness and financial market openness have significant and positive effects. So, in environmental openness, we can see that beta is 0.141 and the p-value is less than 0.001. Whereas in the financial market openness, beta is 2.409 and the p-value is less than 0.05. Therefore, we can say that both hypothesis 1A and hypothesis 2A receive significant support. This table shows the results of mixed regression models in the second stage that uses degree of internationalization, which is also called as DOI, as the dependent variable. We can see that in Model 6 is about the level of legal environment openness, Model 7 shows financial market openness, and Model 8 includes both the legal environment openness and the financial market openness. And in all these three models, that is Model 6, Model 7, and Model 8, it has a significant and positive effect on a firm's degree of internationalization. So therefore, we say that hypothesis 1B and 2B are supported. Now, with regards to the hypothesis 3A and B, we find that the moderating effect of legal environment openness is significant in Model 9 and Model 11. So, hence, hypothesis 3A is supported. But hypothesis 3B is supported to some extent because the moderating effects of financial market openness is very much significant in Model 10, but it is insignificant in Model 11. By understanding the results of the hypothesis test, it is now proved that a poor legal environment at home actually hampers firms' outward internationalization. So these findings support the argument that institutional weakness in emerging economies may hurt firms' competitive advantage. The second observation is that large emerging economies such as BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they have tremendous institutional heterogeneity among regions within each country. Finally, if this study can contain only one message, I would like it to be a sense that institutional open access at home is an important source behind some of the emerging economies' firms' internationalization. Now coming to the last part of the presentation, the concepts outlined in earlier slides can also be extended to the Canadian context regarding the outward internationalization. A few existing studies show that outward FDI is positive for the Canadian investing firm as it learns from best practices abroad and adopts a more efficient organizational structure. As per the study and research conducted by the Bank of Canada, the growth in labor productivity across Canadian provinces can be positively seen with outward FDI. Region of the firm's headquarter also benefits from outward FDI. This may be because investments in foreign countries allow for more transfers of knowledge and know-how. Next, it would be interesting to examine the impact of outward FDI on other variables, including employment, sales, profit of firms, to obtain a more nuanced understanding of firms' motivation. As it can be seen from the slide, Canadian public institutions are extending their legal and financial market openness towards its local firms to so that they can expand their operations in international markets. So there are various support and funding programs for every business need. For example, in Can Export SMEs, Canadian small and medium-sized enterprises can break into new international markets. In Can Export Innovation, academic institutions and non-government research centers can carry out their research and development activities in foreign markets. In Can Export Associations, Canadian national industry associations and trade organizations can pursue their international business development activities. And likewise, in Can Export Community Investments, Canadian communities and non-profit local-based organizations can attract, retain, and expand foreign direct investment. So that is all about this presentation, and thank you so much.